Next to him, entrepreneur, digital marketing strategist, and co-founder of digital media company #sports.com, Stephen Cobb. Fashion editor, lifestyle influencer, blogger, and frankly, de facto ambassador of style for Bermuda, Shiona Tarini. Chief Marketing Officer of the forthcoming social music experience, Cure Music, and former head of digital and social at Black Entertainment Television, JP L'Espinasse. And marketing executive for HSBC Bermuda and a leading active social media advocate for the island, Clifton Webb. So guys, we're gonna have a really live discussion today. We're looking forward to your questions, of course, after, but of course, if you have a burning question in the midst of the panel, please tweet at #BTA Summit. We will be checking on some of those tweets as they come in, so we might need to interrupt our panel to get to one of those. So by all means, let's make this social, let's make it fun, and let's make it dynamic. So first and foremost, before we get to our panelists today, I want to take a step back and really help define what is killer content. There's really three things that we want to go through. And again, you're gonna get a lot of takeaways today here. None of this is all inclusive. Content is a lot of things to a lot of people. What we want to leave you with is some real actionable insights for you, your brand, and your product to really take away, to really help formulate, especially as we're going into the new year, a content strategy for 2016. So content, what is it? First and foremost, it is valuable. What this means is that engaging with it needs to add something essential to the experience to better help understand you or your brand or the world that exists around you or your brand to make you a leader in your space. Killer content is relevant. Why should someone care about your content? This is a real important question. Marketers at all levels, all sizes of brands need to ask themselves. Does it help validate your audience's current belief system, or does it positively challenge that belief system? Does it align with their interests? And does it speak to them in a way that they demand to be spoken to? And killer content has to be consistent. Does it reflect on you or your brand consistently? Is your visual storytelling clear, impactful, up-to-date, and represent not only who you are now, but who you want to be in the future? And we're going to talk a little bit more about this. Next, who is killer content for? It's for people. It's for human beings. And we've already heard this echoed today in previous sessions. Oftentimes, we as marketers tend to lose sight of who content really needs to reach. And again, it's human beings. We need to find those emotional connections through our content. Those human beings can be a wide variety of people. They can be, of course, your customers, your guests, or your visitors, both current and potential. They can be your stakeholders, your partners and allies that may be sitting in the room right here next to you. You'll be talking throughout the course of the summit. They could be the media, believe it or not. We have some of those folks in the room too. These are all folks that are consuming content. They want to understand your story. They want to understand it in a way that, again, is relevant to them. So the crux of today's panel will really focus on what killer content needs to do. And we've broken it out into four specific areas, four specific elements that killer content must accomplish. This is really what we're going to go through today with our panel. First and foremost, it needs to entertain. Secondly, persuade. It needs to educate, and then it needs to convert. So we're going to dive into this a little bit today. Again, we look forward to your questions after. If you have any questions during the course of the conversation, please feel free to send a tweet, #BTA Summit. We're going to jump in and get started. So first and foremost, on the question of entertainment, and this question is for Matt and JP specifically, and then we're going to go to the panel for a little bit more insight here. Content that purely entertains has a place in this sphere, despite all the cries for return on investment. For those whose teams need to be constantly on the cutting edge of not only entertaining, but trend-driving content, can you talk a little bit about the benefits of simply delivering content that people like? And Matt, we can start with you.
Well, I think first of all, don't overthink it. Like, I think that a lot of the social media, particularly Instagram, which I'm a big fan of, just has to be thoughtfully presented, authentically presented, based on who and what you are. If you just follow that, you're doing a great job. Don't overthink it, don't overproduce it. Find your story, tell that story. I mean, to me, that has always been why I follow certain people, why I search out certain brands, how I discover new brands is based on those stories. And I think, part of the problem with a lot of the big brands or trial by committee is that it's overthought and it's kind of, it just doesn't look authentic. It just, we have an educated audience now, and I always use my mom as the best example, right? Like, they're visually attuned, like they're on Pinterest, they're on Instagram, they are looking at Facebook, but I think Facebook to me is, those pictures of your cats and your kids, put it on Facebook. I don't think, for me, to kind of talk about your vision in terms of branding belongs on Instagram. But I think if you follow a true, authentic path and you tell the story that's relevant to who you are, you're on the right path. And if that means finding somebody else to tell that story for you, or who understands the story, clearly define it, that's a great start to use this medium.
Yeah, and I think Matt's 100% correct. The number one principle in marketing is to know your audience. And there are a lot of people who are producing content maybe because they like it themselves, but they're not thinking about the business objective around it. And Jeff mentioned, we're going to get to the business aspect. We have to start with content that's entertaining, but you also have to figure out entertaining for whom. Like if 25 years ago, 30 years ago, if you were sitting around in a boardroom thinking about what your television show was going to look like, the first question that would be asked is, who are you targeting? And so if you're going to create an entertaining story, I've got a 5-year-old son, what's entertaining for him is not necessarily what's entertaining for me. But Jeff and I were having drinks yesterday and talking about how someone like a Taylor Swift is an amazing example in today's world of a relevant millennial, because the storytelling that she does through her music and through her videos and through her albums and even through the things that she writes on social really transcend generations. But she is an outlier. There are not many people, like we said, probably her and Bruce Springsteen are two people that come to mind, that are still alive and performing today in the music space anyway, who can get people from 12 years old to 65 years old to come to the concerts. Most people can't do that. So, if you can find a niche audience, you can really drive consumer engagement for that audience, and it allows you to hyper-focus what your content is going to look like to make sure that it's entertaining for that group. And then you can build from there and start to grow. And the other wonderful thing about social from my perspective is that you don't only have one shot at it. Like you can try 6 or 7 different things. You can choose to promote some of your posts, you can choose to do some organically, and you can test and learn and see if your hypothesis for what was entertaining was actually entertaining and got the clicks and got the shares and got the retweets. And if it's not, then you augment it. It's not a zero-sum game. It's about testing and learning.
Absolutely. And Steve, in particular, I'd love to know this question to you as well. Coming from the sports world, you know as well as anyone that the power of entertaining content and the need to continually course correct and be on trend is so vital to that industry.
Yeah, definitely. I think sports is a little bit luckier in terms of the fact that fans just want as much content as possible, and they're expecting to get entertained, and they have that insatiable demand that maybe doesn't apply to other industries, where you have to be a little bit more selective about the types of content and frequency that you message them. But ultimately, these fans, you have to look at why they're on these social platforms, and they're on there to talk with their friends, they're on there to be entertained, so you have to speak the language of the platform, and entertainment is a core part of that, so it should be a core part of your strategy on the platform. And also, competition is fierce on these platforms. There are so many different, everybody's on social media, right? And so you're not just dealing with companies, you're dealing with friends and individuals, so you have to entertain and be sexy a little bit as much as possible to get them in, draw them in, so that you can start to hit them with other messages. But if they don't follow you, nothing matters.
My local car wash has a Twitter and Instagram. What they're tweeting, I have no idea. Like John did a great job with the Mercedes today. I don't.
I think, first of all, hi. Are you guys all following me on Twitter and Instagram?
Very smartly promoted.
Shiona T, at Shiona T on every platform. But, just a reminder, I think that just to build off of what everyone said about knowing your audience, I think that's super important, and it's especially important here in Bermuda, because a lot of times I do want to post things that are authentic to me. I want to post my nephews, and I want to post like what my mom made for dinner last night, but I have to realize no one cares. No one who follows me to see that part of my life. They follow me to see like fashion, and they follow me to see me on a beach in a bikini, which is problematic because then I have to always be bikini body ready. But I do know, I recognize that that is what my followers are responding to, and so it's like, why am I on social media? It's not to give the people what they want. And so it's important to remember that, because a lot of the times what's authentic to you and the content that you like is just not what the followers that you kind of created are following you for. If you are a very delicious restaurant in Bermuda that is called Sweet Sacks, and you're posting all of your like Saturday morning specials and stuff, like
Purely hypothetical.
Purely hypothetical. It's like when I want food inspiration, or when I'm about to go to Bermuda, or when I'm recommending someone to stop by, I want them to go and see all of those delicious pastries, and it might throw me off if I see something else. Not to say that they post anything else, but that's just an example because it's something that I follow very regularly. So,
That's actually a really important point that Shiona made, is that for those of you who might have a business where you are the face of the business, you have to remember that the business is a separate entity from you, right? And so, I think Matt said, you can post cats and your kids on Facebook, but make sure that if you do want to be Shiona T in this other place, that brand lives separately. And what's been great is that in the last, I'd say, 18 months, a lot of the social media platforms have made a definitive break in between an individualized account and a public account. On Facebook, you can get one that's just, instead of like me as a friend, it can be follow me. So it's more akin to Twitter. Similarly, you can have a public profile on Twitter that is separate and apart from you. And I would highly recommend that you do that, so that you can still talk to your friends and your family in an authentic way about Jerome, but when you're talking about the business aspect, if you're the business owner of Sweet Sacks, then you can only post about desserts and not have to run those two.
Or calling your friends and family.
Well, as
why would you want to do that?
From a strategic standpoint, entertainment, right? Entertainment's going to get you the most engagement, the most followers, and you can think about that in terms of remarketing capabilities, right? So you should have a presence on all these. On the platforms that you can maintain a presence on, and Facebook and Twitter are par for the course. But the beauty of Facebook and Twitter is, if people engage with you or they follow you, you can market to them on other platforms and on the web and things like that, which is super important, I think. So there's a lot of value underneath the actual tweets and posts on those platforms.
Yep, absolutely. No, thank you guys. So let's move on very quickly. I think it's a good segue, especially into the art of persuasion and the need for content to be persuasive. And Clifton, I want to start with you on this as well, particularly for someone who's a resident of Bermuda and is active as an advocate and ambassador for this island on the regular. You know what goes into persuading folks to put Bermuda into the consideration set. And then Shiona too, I want to go back to you after Clifton to really talk a little bit about your specific experience in fashion and lifestyle world, where persuasion, frankly, is driving this industry like no other. But first, Clifton, can you speak a little bit to what you've seen in the space and how you've seen it evolve, both here for Bermuda as well as elsewhere?
So when it comes to being persuasive, I think there are a lot of key elements, and I think we talked about them as far as quality content, par for the course, good pictures, grammar, of course. We go there, and then there's a couple of key elements I think that you touched on it, Matt, which is authenticity. When you're authentic and you genuinely like something, it shows, and if you genuinely dislike something, it shows. So speak in your own voice, remaining authentic. That just provides so much of a stronger foundation. You can only be one you, and being that authentic you, it translates so much more. So things that are authentically Bermudian, or things that I like and I post and I share, they come from a place not just because it's because I love it. I love to share my Bermuda, I love my Bermuda, and so on and so forth. So I think it's that, and the authenticity, and there's also emotion. Things that make me smile, laugh, think, those are the things that I want to share. Those are the things that I want more people to see, and I have other people in mind that I automatically want to share those with. So things that, we can show a picture of a beach is one thing. Showing a picture of Shiona on the beach is another thing. Or showing a picture of a beach or showing pink sand and an amazing caption that supports that. So there's a picture with a caption, and then there's a picture with a person in it, and then there's a video. So all those things help to garner emotion, or they demonstrate emotion, and in doing so, they kind of evoke emotion and cause that reaction. So I think that a couple of the, just to round it out, I think that those two things are essential in persuasion, just being authentic and considering emotion.
Absolutely. Sharon?
So using my specific fashion background, something that we have learned in magazines and when I worked in a brand side is that something is not going to be a trend or pick up if it's just one person talking about it. So it was not considered a trend unless we saw 3 brands show this particular item on the runway. And I think that applies to social media as well, especially in Bermuda. For example, if I see one post on the Bermuda Food Festival, but I don't see anyone else posting about it, I've forgotten about it and I don't care, and maybe if a few hours later someone posts it, I don't care anymore. So when it comes to persuasion and actually getting people to do something, whether it's follow, buy, or attend, or whatever you're using social media for, it's important not just to do it frequently, but also make your friends do it. I tell my friends all the time, I'm working on this project, you better go like that, right now. And I'll send a reminder, please don't forget to go like this project on this platform. Because until other people see it, and you see it multiple times, it doesn't stick with you. Yeah, okay, nice picture, you move on, but if you're really trying to persuade people and get people to do something, or visit your store, or book this flight, or buy these shorts, I need to see someone other than you posting it. I need to see that. I need to click on that photos of you to see what's happening, what you really look like without that filter, what's really going on. So I definitely think encouraging the community around you to get behind whatever it is you're trying to sell socially, or whatever it is you're trying to promote socially.
And just a technical tip with that, when you kind of tap into that community and you're regramming, take a picture of it, put it through your feed, don't touch it with filters, don't put that little regram banner on the bottom.
Why?
Everyone should learn how to do that, because you create this kind of aesthetic point of view that is more aesthetically pleasing and it's consistent. I also think when you're kind of developing the library images, if you're a hotel or you're a restaurant, being consistent with the point of view and shaping stories is really important. And I think if you looked at a travel magazine like Condé Nast Traveler, you can kind of see how the story is. There's a picture of a landscape, and there's a food picture, and then there's a person, and then there's a detail, and then, that's how storytelling happens. So you can consistently reinterpret and repurpose that, but tell a consistent story. And when you're grabbing images from other people, don't grab the bad ones. I remember when I worked with Martha Stewart Living, we were ahead of the Instagram, and people would put up ugly pictures of cupcakes. Martha, who is not very socially active except on Facebook, if she ever saw those cupcakes, she would go bonkers. It's the cupcake should be the most beautiful cupcake ever. So don't, in the sacrifice of having more content, put up stuff that is not bad, that is bad. So, and if you don't know how to figure that out, find some 22-year-old who does.
Well, on that point too,
just one more thing before we jump off the point. I think that the cultivation aspect is the best kept secret in social media. So Jeff and I worked at the NBA together, and before we pushed anything out, we would automatically get 10 players or 10 teams or 5 somebodies to make sure that everyone they knew when go time was, and we pushed it out. And so the media will have you think, oh, well, this dad posted a video and it went viral, and that dad didn't know anybody and it didn't help it at all. Everybody, not everybody, 99.5% of people are greasing the skids for the social media posts that go viral. And you guys should do the same. Like if you are small business owners and you have other friends who are small business owners, get together in a group and plot out a calendar. That's the other thing we haven't talked about, but yeah, that's the other best kept secret, is that like this stuff oftentimes is not like, oh, I saw this sunset right now and I took a picture right now and I'm posting it right now. Sometimes you take a sunset and lo and behold, there's a sunset every day, folks, right? You can plot it so that you're gonna post it next Thursday in conjunction with your sunset dinner event if you're a local restaurant.
Yeah, create a library.
And also piggyback on that, we used to do a lot of work with Red Bull and their athletes. And this isn't sexy or like rocket science. People are just shooting emails to each other, coordinating with the agencies that they have to post this at this time. And it's a lot of hard work behind the scenes. It's not about, the post is important, you need a good piece of content, you have to have that, but there's also a lot of work behind the scenes that isn't, oh, it's all just because they had a good post and a good time.
Right.
And it's like phone a friend. I always send my friends a picture of myself. I'm like, does my lazy eye look crazy? So it's like I just want to know because I might think I look great, but they're like, that's a bad picture.
That's why I just crop my head out.
Well, because you have the lens for it, right?
Because you do have the lens.
You have the lens.
Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome. Actually, that brings up a good point, Shannon, too, because I do want to talk really briefly again on persuasion. Think about the new technologies that are coming out. Think about the proliferation of Snapchat, even. It has really kind of taken over. I'd love for each of you to maybe give a quick perspective on that, because when you think about the audience that's on that platform right now, this is the next generation of shoppers, the next generation of consumer.
Yeah.
They're being persuaded in a very different way than perhaps a lot of us in the room have been traditionally persuaded. I'd love to get your perspective on that.
I was reading the FT, like on the airplane, like, okay, this looks smart and bring that on the airplane. 6 billion eyes a day look at Snapchat. Now, I have yet to find my footing in Snapchat, and this may all be overwhelming, you guys sitting there thinking like, Twitter and Instagram, I don't get it, and now one more thing. The only reason why you should think about one more thing is that being a participant in it, and you may not navigate it very well, and I'm, again, trying to find my foothold in it, it just shows that you're relevant, and it shows the people that are out there that you're relevant. And I think that's the most important thing in terms of staying on top of your brand and how you want to present it. And there was a great little bit of intel next door in the morning by Mr. Sachs who said, charting senior citizens as the best bit of, the next wave of income for Bermuda. Okay, that goes to 2024, and guess what? They're dead. Maybe I'm a senior citizen at that point, probably, most likely, but you have to understand the millennial audience who is desperate for all this intel and information is looking at these, and they are your next audience. They are your next person sitting in the restaurant. They're the next one at your hotel. They're the next one booking flights, yada, yada, yada. You cannot ignore the relevance of the next generation who's your customer. Sure, you can focus on and be thoughtful for the present one, but if you ignore that in this day and age and are not nimble, you're going to lose your business.
There was an article that I read a couple weeks ago that discussed how the millennials currently are the most, call it persuasive group in that age range that has ever occurred since they've been tracking this from a marketing perspective. It means that, like I remember right when I was a 12-year-old, and I asked my mom or my dad to go somewhere, they were like, I'm making, like the parents would make the decision. But now, because of how, rearing has changed, oftentimes the millennial has a say in the vacation spot, in the restaurant that you're going to that night, in what you're having for dinner. And so, Matt has a really great point. Even if you don't see the millennial coming out of their pocketbook to pay you, the fact is that they might have had more of an influence in the buying decision than you could have ever imagined. And so, find them, cultivate them. It'll never hurt to have the 13-year-old daughter say, Mom or Dad, I really want to go to this place tonight. That's only going to be beneficial for your business.
Absolutely.
And then to specifically address Snapchat, I love it. I'm sorry that you not on your footing.
I need a lesson.
Okay, I can give you a lesson. But the interesting thing about it and why I think it's beneficial to Bermuda is because it just feels more real. I do love Instagram, but with Snapchat, I can know exactly what's happening at that moment and what's going on at the BTA summit and everything else going on from all the people that I follow. screenshot it, and then people like side text like, why are you screenshotting my Snap? But it's like you have that information, and it's like right there, and it's so easy to digest, and it doesn't need a filter, and it just feels like it feels so real. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's part of the benefit of it too, and part of the attraction, because with Instagram or Facebook and Twitter, what have you, you can set up a full-blown photo shoot and take 30, 40, 50, 100 pictures and choose one. With Snapchat, it's raw and it's in the moment. So, and Snapchat, Periscope, Blab, even they're raw and in the moment. And what happens is that levels the playing field for individual small businesses to large businesses, because everybody and anybody can do it. It's for the large brands, what you get to see is a behind the scenes of what really goes on and the people. So a big brand up here is actually run by a group of people, and that it gives you that feeling of, I guess, where it becomes more relatable to you. The business becomes more relatable. So the raw side of it, the in the moment stuff is cool, and it doesn't have to look polished. And big brands, they don't look polished, and so it really levels the playing field. So for small businesses, it is encouraging. Or it's encouraging to get on one of these platforms, and for those reasons.
I think that's a great point. I think it's indicative of a trend that it's hard to believe that it keeps going on, but there are constantly new platforms like Snapchat, Vine, and what have you, and Periscope, which is new forms of content consumption and communication that will continue to happen. And if you're somebody that's early on these platforms, you can really stand out, and you can really play with the big boys, because they're too conservative, or they don't want to devote resources until they know that there's a certain audience there, and they have, they can have the right presence on that platform. And then
they're not nimble. The big boys are not nimble. You have the advantage of being nimble, I would hope. And I think just as one thought, like a great logo and a business card and a letterhead was a part of starting a small business or a big business, this Instagram, digital media, that should be an integral part of how you develop those tools for your business. As much as handing a card was important, I remember when I first got my business card, I was like, now I have a business. The beautiful thing about Instagram, Snapchat, social media, it's free. It's free. And nobody's putting a dollar sign. I mean, there are opportunities for bigger outreach with dollar signs, but just getting into it, it's just time.
Yeah, absolutely. Great, thank you guys. So let's jump really quick into education. It's the third factor around killer content we want to discuss today. And this is for Matt and Steve. And Steve, I'll start with you. And Matt, I want to go back to you as well. Both of you are tasked with developing thought-provoking and thought-leading content for your industries. That needs to be both persuasive as well as educational. And content that educates is a lot like the movie Inception. So I believe a lot of you have seen it. It's various layers of nuance. Some of those nuances are emotional. Some of them are practical, connective tissue. It really helps make up a broader story around what you're trying to tell and the trends that you're trying to explain. So I'd love you guys to talk a little bit about the need for content to educate folks, whether it's on the consumer side, whether it's on the business side even. And I think this could be really beneficial to hear from folks who are dealing with not just consumers but partners as well. I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Sure, yeah. So our story at #sports is how the future of sports is being shaped by technology and digital media, and our audience is sports industry professionals. So we're not necessarily speaking to consumers and fans. The trends that we're talking about are technological trends. So how mobile and social and cloud computing and big data and all these big buzzwords are affecting the sports industry specifically. They're very much affecting the travel industry, and I think Skift is a good example of somebody that's doing that for the travel industry, for anybody familiar with that outlet. But we view that as there are a few just big trends that are happening in terms of how sports fans, the way that their parents consume content, which is more lean back and appointment viewing on TV, is very different than how young millennial and Gen Z sports fans consume content, which is mobile phones, multi-platform. They want to be a part of the event. They want to create content. They want to be closer to the athletes. And so for us, anytime we do a daily newsletter and anytime there's stories that really reinforce that trend, that's what we highlight. That's what we focus on. And then of course, visual, photo, and video content is also something that you really need to hammer home on. And so we try to position ourselves for thought leadership, right? So we have events. We have an annual conference, a 3-day conference and expo. We also have a virtual conference series with Google, and our focus from a content perspective is to really create premium, high-quality thought leadership video, and do a lot of curation, just curation is a huge part in killer content. Not everybody can create content constantly. So all the biggest platforms, Facebook and Twitter, all they do is curate, right? They take other people's content and curate it, and there's a big need for that. And I think that should be a strategy of everybody in this room here. So, we like to curate and pick certain stories, and obviously pick thought leaders to talk about these subjects, which leads me to one more point. We figure the best medium to promote this and to talk about these topics are peers of the people that are reading and subscribing to us, right? So just like they want to hear from potentially the perspective of a traveler, right, instead of a property or a restaurant, they want to hear from the perspective of a human, because that's how people talk on social media. And athletes have way more followers than any team or league. I think that that's something we try to do, is try to take our thought leaders and our individuals who people can relate to and let them send their message and promote what we're doing.
Absolutely.
I mean, I agree, and I think curation is key. With the magazine and with Continent Traveler, how we handle it is like, we have an Instagram account that's kind of reinforcing the print media. And I'm quite entrenched in print media, and I love it. I know the writing is on the wall potentially with print media, but I'm old school. But I'm old school looking to new school, and I think what we do, because we know we can't be producing a magazine every month, and you just don't have the brand bandwidth. So we do these things called Instagram takeovers, and I think those are quite successful because we're using influencers. People are using that word a lot. People that have a very specific point of view with a big following, that have great outreach, and we have them curate for the weekend the Instagram takeover. It's incredibly successful. You get a much better perspective and a more varied perspective on content, and it's a very successful way to promote your brand without just taxing yourself of let somebody else do it. And people love doing it. I mean, both parties benefit, right? Suddenly
each of you get the benefit of one another's scale.
That's right. So if I said, Steve, take over the Instagram takeover for this weekend, he's already immediately access to over 600,000 followers, and everyone kind of plays off that. And I think that's a lot of value. And I think that in general, I get back to the aesthetics of the project. I mean, we are quite diligent and specific about what images go up, and you do have to be thoughtful about that. I can't reinforce it enough. I think you want to keep. I think where Snapchat is allowing actually more rawness, and the idea it's thriving on is that it doesn't have to be that well thought out. Instagram has to be thought out to a certain extent, but it can't be too slick. I wish somebody had the bullet points on the aesthetics of all that, but it's more of a feeling than anything else. Good.
Two points that you made that I want to go off of, just to make it super specific for medians, is the separating your business from your personal. Because while Instagram takeovers are amazing, it would be strange if I suddenly was had someone take over my Instagram account because my Instagram account is so personal.
Right.
But then you take an Instagram account like Tabs, and you have a local athlete take over the Tabs account for the weekend, and that athlete is all around places in Bermuda, wherein the Tabs would be the shores. That's cool, and that works because Tabs stands alone as a company and not just the owner's point of view. So those are ways that it can work in Bermuda for Bermudians and to reach a more global audience.
One of the things that you said about the images and your brand and brand building is pick a couple of keywords that are consistent with your brand. This kind of helps you to which pictures you choose or which images you choose and which images go up. One, of course, they all have to be of a good quality to stand out. Otherwise, they're going to get passed by.
Buy the iPhone 6. This is not a promotion time.
But if you pick 5 words, my brand represents indulgent, bright, influence, or whatever those 5 words are. If the images that you pick don't speak to those 5 keywords, then don't post it. And that helps to remain consistent throughout, because just that odd image, like you said, somebody else taking over your Instagram account. It's like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
I log in to see you, or whatever the case may be. So just for that consistency and to help you come up with the content, because it can become restrained. But in your individual businesses, I'm sure there are things that that you want to showcase to people. When you take those images, pick 5 things and let those images speak for those 5 things for you.
I did pack a few bikinis for the takeover.
All right, I'll take you down to the shots for you.
One last thing that I just wanted to talk about, because we talked a lot about imagery on this panel. It's about the words too. You have your own cadence in how you talk to your friends. You talk probably a little bit differently when you're in business situations, and that should be reflected in all of your content. If your consumer is more casual, then talk that way to them. Talk to them like they're your friend. If you're in a business setting, talk like you're a professional. And so I think that's an important part. The other thing is, for you, Bermudians, there are a lot of things that are endemic to your lifestyle here that I don't know, right? I'm a New Yorker, I'm half Haitian, I'm half Bolivian. This is my first time ever in this country. And so I don't know all the intricacies that go into some of the stuff that you do. I don't know what kind of fish is in the fish cakes, right? So from an education perspective, remember, right, I don't. I mean, and they're delicious. Oh, I don't know what it is. So, teach people how to make the rum swizzle, right? But don't just post one picture of the rum swizzle at its conclusion, right? Set up all the things that you're going to do to make it, right? If you're a restaurant, right? I mean, there's lime in it, right? Go out and show you picking the lime off the tree. Give people all the steps that show them how this thing comes together, because this is part of your culture. And I know that you guys are proud of it. And sometimes you kind of don't see the forest for the trees. You think that everybody else knows this stuff too. No, we don't. Teach us how to do it. You love it. Make us love it too. Through your content, through your words, through your video, through everything. But break things down so that it is more intelligible to the folks who don't know, like me. Anyone who wants to tell me what kind of fish is in the fish cake, I'm available after the
I mean, I just feel that don't assume because you have all this great history and all this great kind of old school that it's only going to appeal to old school. This is what millennials are just starved for, authentic, legitimate stuff. And I think that this is such a place with rich history, vernacular foods, that. People are go bonkers for that stuff. Don't assume that it's just, we've been doing this way for that long and nobody's really interested. I'm interested. We're interested. There's people really interested.
You'll reach entirely new audiences, the foodies of the world that might not be interested necessarily in traveling for Bermuda, but you intrigue them and you bring them in. I want to piggyback on Clifton really quickly on the consistency part. If you think about how people are going to access, your brand or your property, it's probably going to be drawn in through a piece of social media content, and then they're going to look through your history. They don't just stop at that one piece of content. They look at all your Instagram images, or at least the last 10 or so. And if you keep them engaged, they're going to keep looking and they might follow you. And I think the consistency is what makes them follow you. If you're all over the place, it's just one post.
I look at the grid. I find a lot of visual
from this far away.
Yeah. Look at it as a grid, and so they want to see how you put together those images into a story. I try not to post a close up right after a far away. Well, I try to post a close up after a far away, just because the back and forth, this is my trick that I leave with you. Because when you look at it, it gives your eye a break and it doesn't feel super cluttered. And I hate when I go to someone's Instagram account and all the pictures are the same kind of close, and it gives me a headache. I need to be able to let my eyes breathe.
Your magazine education is coming out.
My magazine, yes.
So guys, on the education theme here, for the content producers and the marketers in the room, I'd love for you guys to maybe give just a quick tip. How do they educate themselves on these changing trends? So we understand the power of education and content, but what do we have to do to stay educated?
I think find an Instagram account that you really like, whether it's local or global, and see what they're doing. I'm not saying to copy what they're doing or piggyback off of it, but definitely draw inspiration from it and see, I really like this page, they get a lot of engagement, what are they doing? And don't just look at it once, look at it frequently to see how did they change the filter. I found out once a page that I liked always adds a blue tint to their images, and apparently that gets a higher engagement than photos doesn't mean that I went and started adding a blue tint to my pictures, because I don't really know how to do that. So, but it was nice to know, and it was unique and different, and I was like, okay, what am I gonna do to apply to all of my pictures? And I very quickly found out that my followers like my images to be very vibrant, even though aesthetically I like a more cooler tone. But that's not what people who follow me want to see, so I just,
I mean, I know what image is going to do well on the Instagram account for Traveler or mine personally, and then you sort of get caught into that mindset. But I try to not, sometimes I just put up stuff that I like.
So do I, yeah.
And it's not consistent, but it's worth the experiment. It's worth putting up. And I think you have some fine examples of accounts up here that kind of I think are very consistent. And we know at Traveler too people love bright colors and there's some, but don't let that necessarily drive your point of view. I think you need to find your story, tell your story, and if you're not the storyteller, like I said, find a storyteller that, with fresh eyes can go into it and kind of build or help you build a point of view.
Pay someone.
Pay someone. Cheap.
For me, I continually educate myself by reading a couple of really big tech blogs. So every day I'm on Mashable and TechCrunch. There are a handful of others. If you tweet me, I can send you a list of the ones that I check on a daily basis.
That's your club.
That's my club. I'm not that cute. I gotta have something. That's how I stay educated. And for me, I mentioned it earlier, a huge perspective of mine is the testing and learning. And so anytime I read about something new, I download it to my phone and I check it out. And sometimes I check it out for 5 minutes, I'm like, nope, not gonna work for me, and I delete it. But there are some that's like, wow, this is really, really powerful. One of them is, there's an app called Kik that the young people are using as like an instant messenger, basically. And there are a lot of brands who are using Kik now to basically do customer service. That's a piece that we didn't talk about. I don't know if it's a huge, thing for a lot of the businesses that are in the room, but these days customers, no one picks up no one does a hotline customer service. Nobody writes a letter. Well, I still write letters to American Airlines.
I do.
Whatever.
Yeah, so do I.
That's right.
But there's often a lot of angry Americans.
Yeah. But nowadays people will tweet you, and now these one-to-one or one-to-few messaging platforms like Kik are a wonderful way to kind of spin your customer service mechanism. So try stuff, and again, no one is going to scold you if you try it and it doesn't work and you abandon it. You gotta continuously try stuff because you don't know what the next Snapchat will be. But if you're on it early, and I think you said it, if you're on it early, you get first mover advantage.
I think that as far as keeping up to date with things, back in the agency world, it was definitely looking at other industries. So we took an activation that Jimmy Choo did, where they personified their trainer shoe in London, and we applied that to John Rondo and Boston Celtics in the NBA Finals. We did a Foursquare activation. Adweek is pretty good in terms of talking about marketing campaigns, and a lot of times these new platforms, like you don't even know about, they like to write about these platforms because they're hot, and so people are trying to do very innovative activations on the platforms and really use them in a creative way so that they get written about, and that's good to follow these outlets like Adweek. The other one that I really, really like is Digiday, D-I-G-I-D-A-Y. They just get it. I think they really understand who's doing the right stuff on these platforms from a brand perspective. Good to follow for examples as well. But that's the best way to learn, I think, is following.
I think the other key way to learn is just to get involved. A lot of the things that the experience that social media is evolving so fast that I don't think there's anybody who's a real expert, so to speak, because the platforms are constantly changing. There are new plugins, there are new features to them always. So you learn them by doing it. I'm online quite a bit. I probably participate in a few Twitter chats with industry expo influencers or industry leaders. I probably do about 4 or 5 Twitter chats a week. It's like an hour's worth of learning. Podcasts play in the background while I'm doing other things. So the learning is constant, but the best way to really learn is to just get involved. Pick one, get involved, and pay attention to some of the nuances that they have, the updates, and you can go cross-platform with this when you do have the opportunity.
I think another interesting thing with all these formats is you can directly communicate with people, and I think that engagement is really very interesting. And I use the American Airlines one as an example. Like when I fly Air France, I will hashtag Air France. I love airplanes. I know that. I love A380s. If I take a picture of that A380 and put it on my Instagram account, I swear to God, in moments I get a response from Air France, and I'm just like, that's great. That I just love that engagement. And we found actually when we were at Martha Stewart, like developing the social media, which was like, they had no idea how to deal with this, but as soon as you responded as Martha Stewart, people went crazy in there because they really thought Martha was talking to them. She wasn't. It was me. In a wig. With a basket full of brownies. But that engagement created buzz and created excitement, and people started sharing the links and we got floods of great imagery, and it was such I've made, and this sounds a little nutty, like I've made great friends through Instagram because all of a sudden you're following people and having conversations with people that are directly like-minded, right? And that is so interesting in terms of, I don't know, there could be just tons of followers just looking for, rum drink pictures, okay? My mother thinks I'm a full-blown alcoholic because I post so many cocktails, and in also moving forward with this technology, think about this. Instagram is not that far off from click to buy. So if you could be on your phone in a bar buying a bottle of Goslings because it's your first time you ever had it, which is a mistake. Like just think about the power of that click to buy and booking hotel rooms, booking flights. The technology is there in terms of making reservations at restaurants, but I think when it comes to merchandise and hotel stays, when that interface happens, hopefully in a very organic way, that's going to change the game.
Right, that's actually a great segue too into our final topic here, which is about conversion. And this is something I want to throw to JP and Shiona in particular. With very deep background working, of course, with for-profit brands, in talking about conversions, it can be a financial conversion, but it can also be a different kind of conversion. It can be an advocate. It can be a participant. It can be creating an organic advocate for you or for your brand. There's a variety of ways to define a convert and a conversion. There's a lot of different values one can attach to that. So I'd love for you guys to talk a little bit about those various definitions, kind of how you see conversion. And again, Matt, what you just mentioned, just in terms of we are literally a degree away from click to buy, click to experience. This is really where social is driving today's sales and marketing efforts. And I'd love the panel to talk a little bit about that. So,
sure. When I was running all of the Twitter feeds and all the social properties for BET, the television network, I had an edict to my team, which was 85% of the posts required a call to action. Right? If you're, there are things that you can just show people the beautiful sunset, done. But for the most part, if you are running a social account or a website or a blog or whatever property, for a brand, there should be a call to action in every communication, that you send. You want them to do something. It's not necessarily that you want to come out of their pocket, every single time, but even if it's just to like our page if you haven't yet. That means that you get another touch point. If some of the most successful posts that we did was asking people to double tap. Click like on this, because a lot of people scroll through and they enjoy looking at the image or they enjoy the post that you sent, but they just don't take that extra millisecond to tap on it. And that tap is so powerful, right? Because that tap acts as a share, which means their followers see it. Your scale could have just increased 5x. By one person doing something for 1 millisecond. So that conversion is another step in them coming out of their wallet, or them booking a flight, or them buying a pair of shorts. It might not be as one-to-one right now, but inspire them to do something that is going to be beneficial to you in driving your business. Bring them to, it's called the funnel, right? The purchasing funnel. Bring them down the purchasing funnel in some way. And maybe it's just activating them as a marketing agent, to tell their friends that this is a cool whatever. Sometimes it'll actually activate them to buy, which is the holy grail, certainly.
I actually have a very different perspective on that. When someone tells me to tap to this picture or tag a brand, I immediately kind of scroll by. So I mean,
People or brands?
both people and brands.
Are you a Taurus?
I'm a Virgo, but I still don't like being told to do that. And for myself and for a lot of the brands I work with, it's actually, and the brands that I work with are kind of fashion focused, but it is less about the likes and it's more about the amount of followers that account or that person has, because even if someone is not tapping like, we know that a large number of people saw it.
Yep.
So you can look at it in two different ways, like that like and that engagement and all of that stuff is very valid. But then you also might just be a company that recognizes that X amount of people have seen this post, and like I said earlier, kind of there's strength in numbers, making sure that there are other people around you also helping you carry that message. When I do an initiative with a brand, an initiative I did launch today, and it was for Dior, which we could have just posted it on Dior and said, okay, great, go buy these shoes. But instead, it's let's get 10 people whose point of view we like to make sure they're photographed beautifully and wearing these shoes, and have them post it and share it with all of their friends as well. And so that was a more meaningful or more strategic play for us, instead of just doing something just for Dior's Instagram account or just for Dior's Instagram account. It was getting those 10 people's followers and audience as well, because you just want to increase the amount of people that's seeing your message and seeing your brand and seeing your hotel and seeing your sunset. So
that's very fair. Actually, it goes back. I messed up and I forgot the first thing that I said, which is know your audience. And yeah, the fashion audience is certainly different from a more transactional one. It's like the sports audience. Sports people put on a jersey or put on something that has a huge logo on it because they want to be I am a New York Giants fan. And it's certainly different in fashion, where people want to make sure that if you have you might not tell people where you got that skirt because you don't want anybody else to show up with that skirt. So it's slightly different, and you have to know your audience and nuance your content and your calls to action for your consumer.
Right.
Certainly.
But I find that it is, I see that in travel as well. When I see a group of people who are well dressed or who have good taste or whose taste I trust, all Instagramming from Thailand, I'm I have to go to Thailand.
Right.
Why am I not in Thailand? And why am I not there? Why am I here on my couch? So it for me, it's about the number of times I see things, and I do find that I'm Bermudian, I love my Bermudian people, but a lot of times we do kind of have the habit of following what the next person is doing and seeing what is cool, and I think that you have to capitalize on that. You really do. It's just a fact. Bermudians don't think something is amazing until they see a whole bunch of other people doing it. And so if that is going to help your business, then capitalize on it. There's nothing wrong with that.
You're going to see so many of these socks in the streets of New York in the winter.
Because you're...
Yeah.
That's the fear of missing out is a huge trend in social media. Obviously in sports, people are encouraged as much as possible to take pictures from the game. They don't forget encouraged, they do it because they want to write to their friends and be I'm here right now, you're not. And their friends are going to be damn, I don't want to go there, or I wish I was there, but life's better than me. And so I think you can really play that up in the travel industry in Bermuda, and it's more about facilitating user-generated content and making it that much easier for them to know what hashtag to use, or you should take a picture, you got to suggest things. And to JP's point, it's true, you don't want to ask people to do things all the time, but when you do ask people, it's so much higher in terms of the amount of people that comment or whatever. So there's no denying that people are stupid and you need to tell them what to do in general.
I think the fashion world, it's done seamlessly and so beautifully with influencers, and I think the sports world with just true fans are just so excited and excitable to push out content. I think that nothing, is more valuable than a beach picture in the middle of February hitting New Yorkers.
Yeah.
And you're not, or I just think, or don't underestimate, listen, invite an influencer with a lot of followers to come to your property and spend a night, or come to your restaurant, or, those are the very simple, inexpensive ways to kind of get outreach. And you'd be surprised. Maybe it's people that didn't even know this place existed. And it's just suddenly reaching all these eyes going like, oh yeah, my parents had their honeymoon here. And they claim my brother was conceived here, which is a lot better than the east side of Binghamton, New York, where I was conceived. But, there was a certain time where I was getting money and I wanted to travel, and I just was like, wait, Bermuda, I forgot about it. And it's 90 minutes away. What's that? You forget about it.
People forget about Bermuda.
And this place has such rich history and great style and amazing people and vernacular food, and and it's so close. I just think you got to find that way to tap into it and make that outreach happen with those stories. I keep talking about stories because I think the heritage and the storytelling here is so rich, and it's just finding your comfortable pacing in space with the medium, which everybody is looking at their phones.
Right. Thank you guys. In the interest of time, I want to go to last word here. Clifton, I'm going to start with you, working way down, back to Matt. I think last word.
What are we last wording?
Whatever you want to offer to our esteemed guests here in the audience.
Matt just talked about Bermuda, and for a lot of people in the room, it's like, hey, wow, Bermuda is all of that. It has a lot of hidden stories. It has its own look, feel, food, taste, and most importantly, it has its people. We can be a bit of a jaded bunch in that. On my way here this morning, I probably passed by 3 beaches that people pay thousands of dollars to come and visit for 5 days. And so we look past those things and we don't necessarily bring those things out and share them. Because I don't hesitate to tell people I live in paradise, and I show off about it too. So I think that's some of the things that we need to do. Is stop, take a look back, look at your businesses, your offerings through the eyes of the visitor, and that becomes some of the things that you base your content on, and you have the opportunity to share through these mediums, because we are gems, all walking around this gem in the middle of the Atlantic. We're some of the best beaches in the world. So know that, accept that, embrace that, and then share that, and look to share that through the things that you bring to the table.
I'll leave you with one final tip that I don't think we really focused in on. I call it listen and ride the wave. And so what a lot of brands and businesses do is they have figured out what they want to say about their business, and then they create the content for that business, and they just push it out. The fact is that social media is a listening platform first, right? There are a lot more people out there talking about stuff, than anything you could have conceived in your head. So listen to what the conversation is happening out there, and then ride whatever waves are most amenable to driving your business. And if you're a business that wants to sell shorts, right? Every day you can dedicate a couple of minutes to searching trends, right? Searching the Twitter top trending topics, and you can also set up alerts so that's like, if shorts ever start to trend, you're like, oh, I have this amazing library of content that now I can activate. Because people are talking about shorts, let me listen to them, and then I'm just going to ride the, pardon the pun, right? But I can just ride the wave of all these other people talking about something that is very, very core to my business, and lo and behold, I've got a content library ready. And now I can just start to infuse it. And that's how you grow followers, that's how you get customers, and you get advocates too.
I would say my wrapped up points are post once a day. We didn't talk about the frequency, and I feel like we're talking about Instagram. So, specific to Instagram, post once a day so that you are kind of building that library and that thread and making sure that you have consistent content. So at least once a day. Hire a professional photographer. Pay someone if you know that you can't do it, or if you're unsure about what is visually appealing. Hire someone else to help you do that and help you find that point of view. And I think what's really important about in Bermuda because we're so small, is to support other people on these social platforms. One of my favorite is for memes, and I like to like their pictures because they like mine. It's just that simple. So, that's kind of the mentality that's here. And so it's like, if you want to up your social media profile, it's like help other people up theirs as well.
I think, all of us kind of live and breathe this. This can be very overwhelming, for people that aren't in social media. And just want you to know that, if you're frustrated because you can't keep up to date with social channels, like, it's very difficult for us to do that ourselves. So understand that you're not going to be experts in this. Like, Clifton said, don't worry about the fact that you might not fully grasp certain platforms and how people communicate, but you should definitely dedicate yourself to trying to learn. And a lot of times, the best way to do it is just have somebody else do it. Obviously, you from a marketing and a storytelling perspective know what's driving. That's just another medium of communication. And they know how to communicate on that medium, and you try to connect the dots there. But these people live and breathe. This is how they talk. They talk in emojis. The younger generation. I don't talk in emojis, so it's more difficult for me to actually program content for that. But I do control the bigger message, and then make sure the people that know those platforms can do it. So that might be a good strategy for you.
I just think people want to feel connected. I think make those connections. People want to, in terms of going to place, like, I always wondered, there was this hotel that, family would go every single year, go to this one place every single year. And I realized they liked it because they felt connected to the place, and they made friendships. And there may be not, that the traveler has changed a little bit, but I think you can make these connections. You can find that familiarity with this medium, and then immediately, people are already like, oh, of course I know that place. And then they find that when they get there, it's not a complete mystery because they've kind of charted course with all these points of view. And I think to make connections, and again, I want to reinforce finding the narrative and the story is the most important part, I think, of the process. And then we'll move on to the next one after Snapchat. But just start. You just need to start. If you haven't started, just start. It's the easiest thing once you find your footing. I'm a big Bermuda fan, by the way.
Yes, thank you guys so much. Okay, so everyone, it looks like we're running a little bit behind on time here, and I know you guys are probably starving and lunch is forthcoming. So rather than do a formal Q&A here, we're going to let you guys go. If you guys want to come up and ask our panelists any questions before you head over to eat, you're more than welcome to do so. Again, thank you so much for attending, guys, and for the rest of